To finish up our discussion on Great Britain, what we're going to look at here is we're going to look at some public policy and current issues that exist in the nation today. So the British economy is historically rooted in liberalism. It's a philosophy that emphasizes political and economic freedoms for the individual and for the market. The liberalized form of economy has gone through many transformations throughout English history, and we're going to look at that. And it's a lot of stuff that we've talked about to this point if you've watched the previous videos. So we're definitely going to be looking at some of the different themes that we've talked about, but we're focused more on with the economy. After World War II and then through the 1970s, England practiced what was called the collective consensus. And remember, within that collective consensus, and starting with Churchill, through the 1970s, we have a cabinet that is made up of people from different parties that is designed to emphasize the different needs that existed throughout each party. This was based on social democratic values that support a great deal of government control in the economy. This approach is called Keynesianism, and is the system the government takes action to secure full employment, expand social services, maintain a steady rate of growth, and keep prices stable. So within this system, throughout Keynesianism, what we have is we have this idea that the government is supposed to be spending money, that when you have a shortfall in the economy, that the government should be the one that should be there to step in and fill in that shortfall in order to keep everybody having what they need in order to be able to survive. When Margaret Thatcher took over as Prime Minister, she instituted the idea of neoliberalism. This is the revival of old political and economic philosophy. She pushed towards a free market economy and a denationalization of industry. So even though during that collective consensus the government took a much more active involvement in the things that happened throughout the country, under Thatcher she very much pulled back on that idea. Thatcher and her successor John Major based their economic plan on monetarism. Monetarism is the idea that there is a natural state of unemployment determined by the labor market itself, and that state intervention into the economy should be limited to a few steps to foster appropriate rates of growth in the money supply and keep inflation low. So there's really only two reasons that you should get involved then under this idea of monetarism: that you keep inflation low and that you keep the money supply at a natural level. Other than that, everything else should be allowed to play out the way that it plays out, because that's how the market works. These policies were largely based upon the ideas of laissez-faire economic model. Under Tony Blair between 1997 and 2007, and with the help of Gordon Brown, Britain's misery index was brought to a new low. So when we look at the misery index, that is how well things are going on in the country, having to do with unemployment and literacy rates and healthcare and things like that. All right. So they're able to make inflation, they're able to stop inflation, they're able to keep unemployment rates low. All right. So they're able to do all of these things while also increasing welfare programs that improve living standards in England. The global recession of 2008, however, derailed the success of Gordon Brown and led to the eventual defeat of the Labour Party. Under David Cameron, the current Prime Minister, the Big Society program was started. And this program looked for private companies, charities, employee-owned groups to have a bigger role in society and in the process of shaping policy. In 2009, there was a great scandal that took place in Parliament. Members of each party were embezzling funds from Parliament, using them to pay for multiple home improvement projects, daily expenses, and second home allowances. Reform was called for, and then Prime Minister Gordon Brown led the movement to increase parliamentary transparency. So even though this type of stuff was going on, rather than what would have happened in a lot more of a corrupt society where it would have been swept under the rug and tried to keep quiet, the government very much went out of their way to show how they were dealing with these issues and how they could fix these issues in the future. So it was a very transparent thing. So even with this, even though they lost faith of what was going on within the government, they were very unhappy what was going on in the government, there was still a great length of transparency, a great deal of transparency that existed within the society, which allowed for quick healing with those issues. Alright, so let's look at how Great Britain deals with the European Union. In 1978, Britain entered the Common Market 21 years after it was established. The Common Market was the precursor to the EU, and we will be looking at this a little bit more in depth come the next unit. The entry of Britain into the Common Market was brought forth after Thatcher left the government and John Major signed the Maastricht Treaty that created the EU. With Entry into the EU, Britain continued to use the British pound. Recent polls show that the percentage of British public who want to hold onto the British pound has dipped below 50%. So even though there is this great concept of insularity within the nation, and that the government very much wants to try and keep the economy as separate as they can from the EU, that there is a growing support of moving to the EU as currency. So terrorism. Terrorism is another major important concept when we talk about Great Britain. In July of 2005, 52 people were killed in London transit bombings. In 2006 and 2007, multiple car bombings took place throughout London. In order to combat those terrorist acts, MI5, the British Security Service, has money set aside to stop terrorist activities. A mosque watchdog is in operation, and they are keeping track of suspected terrorists. And with these terrorist activities and the things that have gone on, there has been a lot of fear regarding Muslim populations within Great Britain, which is one of those cleavages that we talked about previously. Under Gordon Brown in 2007, the British government created a program that emphasized non-violence among British Muslims. This program was criticized for its small focus on young Muslim males. So remember, when we talk about the government form that the UK has, is that they are a unitary government. But over the last few decades, there has been a push for greater devolution within the society. And remember, devolution is the idea that you provide more power to the regional governments. While still being unitary, Parliament has started to give Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland more independence. This can be seen with Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales having their own independent parliaments. These parliaments have the power to tax, to educate, and to participate in economic planning. But remember, British Parliament law supersedes all laws passed on these regional parliaments. Devolution has also seen the creation of the Office of Mayor of London. The city has now more independence from the central government and its affairs, which is something that is very, very new. There have also recently been calls from citizens to create a Bill of Rights for citizens, a written constitution, and a new electoral system. A proportional representation system was rejected by British voters in 2011. All right, so they're very happy with the regime. It's a very, very stable civil society. None of that has changed. However, there has been pushes for a greater concept of what rights should be given in these modern times.